Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to give attendees another minute to come into the room. Welcome, everyone. My name is Truc Nguyen, and I'm the Manager of Storytelling and Strategy for the Chang School. Before we get started today, I would like to acknowledge the land on which Toronto Metropolitan University is built upon. Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share this territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans and all newcomers, have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. I want to pay my respects to the Indigenous peoples, elders, and ancestors who stewarded and cared for nature and the people who lived on the land where TMU is located today. At the university, we have made a deep and long-lasting commitment to truth and reconciliation. I invite you to learn more about this work online. Now, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's session. Your microphone is muted throughout the event so as not to disturb other attendees or the presenter. For the hearing impaired, we have automated captioning available, which you can access by activating it in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing them into the Q&A box in the control panel. You may send in your questions when prompted during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. Also, be sure to check your inbox tomorrow, as we will be sending an email with common FAQs about the certificate. I would now like to introduce our presenter for today, Alex Verworn, Academic Coordinator, Certificate and Full Stack Developer. He will provide an overview of the certificate program featured and how it can help you in building your career. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you, Truc. As Truc said, my name is Alex, and so I'm a professor in the Department of Computer Science as well. I just want to talk to you a bit about this new opportunity. So we have a lot of different certificates that are available around the area of what we're talking about in terms of developing applications for web deployment at the Chang School. However, this one is the only one that talks about being end-to-end, and that's really what we found employers were looking for. So we'll teach you how to code, we'll teach you how to develop a website, we'll teach you how to do all of that stuff in various places. But this is a certificate if someone is asking you to do a complete application, meaning it's not just what it looks like, but what it does in the back end. So let's start. So we're going to talk to you about what you're going to learn. Also what you're capable of doing once you've taken the certificate. We've already, to our surprise, actually have good news already for graduates of our first cohort, and what's likely to happen what's happening now in this burgeoning industry, and what's likely to happen. So thank you. Move forward to the next one. So the idea behind the certificate, as I alluded to, is that you wouldn't just be responsible for one tiny thing. So I don't know what ages everybody are out there, but when the internet first started, or actually the World Wide Web first started appearing, you could get a huge job, like one that's paying a huge amount of money for simply knowing the HTML language. Now, all HTML would normally do is kind of let you do the front end of a website, which is all anybody thought they could do with a website. But now with e-commerce and everything else going on in the back end, people want to drive sales through their websites. They want to collect information through their websites. They wish to give out all kinds of opportunities through their website. And it's not just a matter of information or advertising. There's actually real functionality on these sites, which means that more things are involved. So what this certificate does is it talks about things like middleware. So these are enabling pieces of software that you need to know about to make a website, all singing, all dancing, and actually functional. So it will actually take in information, talk to a database in the back end, and provide services. So this lets you. This certificate is unique in that regard. So we talk about the complete development lifecycle of an application, from the front end, which was what the user may see or customer may see, right to the back end where all the information and the money and everything else gets dealt with in the databases in the back end. And how to make sure it works. So this is what the beta testing is all about. So it's one thing to deploy a website, but one doesn't want to deploy something that doesn't actually do what we want. And in the days where everything is being attacked, you really want to know your work is going to be successful. And we will show you how to do that in the certificate. So thank you. Next one. So career paths. So the career paths are really to do what used to be a programmer analyst did in a very monolithic shop. So what used to happen is people will get hired by a insurance company or a bank or any number, like maybe Canadian Tire, and they were called a programmer analyst. The programmer analyst's job was to develop certain things right from the beginning. So what the somebody inside the company would see right until the end, where something was actually recorded and implemented in a database. The trick was that everything was usually in-house, right? So the computers were all owned by whatever company hired you. The services were all provided on a network that was entirely inside the premises of the company that hired you. And the only people you ever really talked to or even cared what your program looked like were the users, and they were all employees of the same company. This model, while it still exists, has been really diminished. So what's really happening is people, because of the internet and the web, people have branched out. So these things have become more fragmented, and rather than everybody doing everything in one particular place, they're done all over the place. So this improves your employment opportunities because you didn't have to break into one company and deal with a single set of management. You could actually deal with a number of people all kind of looking for the same services, which the certificate allows you to do. So the first one, consultant. This is a part of the gig economy, but kind of a better version of the gig economy, because when you're consulting in this area, they wish you to do the full stack development, and there's usually a good amount of remuneration involved. So you could do that, stay aloof and become an independent contractor, and we support that through providing you letters of reference and everything else that you will need in order to start with a good reputation and move out into the market. But you can do this in a number of ways. So you could develop mobile applications, for example. Many companies don't have a good cell phone version of whatever software they're pushing. So we're talking about app development, and those apps need to talk to something in the back end. So this certificate prepares you for doing that. We have a mobile app development certificate as well, but this will help you to do the back end development, the certificate we're talking about today. And of course, there's standard website developer and back-end developer as well. So once you know what's in the back end, your job opportunities open up because you actually know what's under the curtain, what's behind the curtain. And so those are the major ones. What we found, we've had a limited history with this certificate, but people have started consulting, right? So that seems to be where people start. But we have had a success story very, very recently. One of the first graduates of the certificate, because the new certificate, was offered a job. She didn't say exactly what she was getting, but it seemed to be between at least $65,000 and $70,000 a year, and that's without any previous experience. So that's an entry level job that paid, I don't, low end $65,000. That's pretty good. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this area is doing nothing but growing. We find that the small growth of 3 to 4% is something that we'd expect in an economy. But this type of work is growing at a much higher rate, and people are demanding better services in the back end. So this means that the growth in the industry is likely to be even higher. And with the advent of additional attacks coming, like cybersecurity attacks, we have even more people who are very interested in having competent people developing these websites and back-end systems that aren't as susceptible to attack as someone who doesn't know what they're doing would possibly open a company up to. So what employers are looking for is someone who actually has received formal training so that they can actually talk to their underwriters as well about the qualifications of their staff. So this counts as a qualification. So you'll be in demand because you have formal, backed by a university certificate saying that you can do something that is actually useful. All right, next one. So it's hard to know what the job market's going to be. And if I were to be honest, I would think that the job market would have tanked by now, but it hasn't. It's actually grown. So the number of jobs in this area looking for these specific skills is growing by leaps and bounds. As I alluded to before, the entry-level salaries are quite impressive. So if you're looking at $70,000 a year for an investment of a few courses, I'd say that's a pretty good investment. And I've been receiving requests for letters of reference from our existing cohort who are taking this certificate right now, and it looks like they've got good opportunities. So to share some of the ones, not naming any names, but places that are considering hiring are almost graduated full stack developer certificate students. We've got one from CIBC, we have one from Sun Life, and we have several from Canadian Tire. So these are people who are about to enter the job market, being sucked into the job market because there's demand. Right? And it doesn't look like this is going to end anytime soon. So it is an opportunity. Next slide. So we don't just throw you into the market. We try and keep you around. We're trying to develop a relationship with our students. We're not particularly interested in, we'll take your money and we love your money, but we want you because we found that Chang School students are the best ambassador for more Chang School students. So we wish you to be successful, because if you're not successful, you're a one-time customer. And if you are successful, you might come back, and that's good for us and it's good for you. So what we do is we provide sort of wraparound services that you won't find in other places. So we have mentoring services that are available one-on-one through Zoom. So we have an expert in the field who will help you through the various courses you have to take, and will give you advice. And this is informed advice. So we don't hire anybody. We hire people who have actually either taken this certificate or have been shown to be experts in this area. We also invite potential employers into final projects, right? And they are attending because they need to hire people. So we're developing relationships with potential employers so that you will be able to form relationships with them as well. We keep in contact with you through LinkedIn, and we will provide letters of support should you require it. So my colleague Anne-Marie Brinsmead and I, we have written letters of support for dozens of students. So she does it very specifically for certain skills that you will have learned, and I do it based on what your academic achievements are. And the employers are increasingly looking for evidence that you've actually learned something, right? So so what we found with the ones who've actually gotten jobs in the last cohort is that they inevitably are asked to do some sort of test which shows their skill set. And this used to worry me, but apparently we are teaching them things because they all seem to have passed this with no problem. And then comes the references. So employers are concerned about what you know, and they wish to be reassured that you know something. So I'm getting calls and I'm taking those calls and I'm providing those references for our students. So I expect to do the same thing for you if you take our certificate. Right. So next slide. Any questions? And so here's the thing. So I can't hear anything. So if you yell into your muted mic, that's not going to work. But I have a bunch of talented colleagues who will feed me questions. So thank you.
No, of course, Alex. Thank you for the presentation. It was very straightforward. We have a couple of questions in the chat, and everyone, this is your opportunity to ask Alex a question about your specific, kind of requirements, and if you have any questions about the certificate. So Pooja is wondering how much time is required to complete the entire certificate?
You see, this is the $1,000,000 question. It depends on you, right? So some people can't take this stuff fast enough. So we have had people complete the certificate in essentially 2 terms, right? So they have done it, taken all the courses available in the fastest amount of time, which I thought was not even possible, but they did it in 2 terms. And we don't have a lot of experience because we have, as I said, this is a new certificate, but for older certificates, people take years, depends on their own pace. So we're not the ones driving this, you're in the driver's seat. The only thing that potentially would slow you down is if a course is not available. And there's lots of reasons for that, but generally speaking, they are available. So you won't be either slowed down or speeded up by us. It's really up to you. So I hope that answers the question.
No, definitely. So someone is wondering, I currently work as a functional solution consultant, helping sell technology to banks. I'm hoping to expand my skills to provide the technical solutions consulting during the sales cycle as well. Would this certificate provide a baseline of front end and back end technical knowledge?
Yes. So not only will it do that, so it'll fill, actually you're kind of the perfect customer for this certificate, because we will talk to you about middleware solutions, right? So the middleware is the binding stuff that pulls together what is happening on the front end of the interface, the website, and what is happening in the back end, which is normally a database or some sort of intelligence system. We talk about that in the certificate, and that adds value to your sales pitch, because inevitably the back end won't work with the front end that you're suggesting, especially in a bank where they're hiding all that COBOL code that they have in the back end. So what you need is some understanding of middleware and how it can be used to kind of ease the burden of a bank who inevitably wants you to do with really old code that's well hidden in front of a facade. Yes, this is for you.
Thank you. Lots of great questions in the chat, actually. I see someone has their hand up. If you can actually just type in whatever you need to communicate to us in the chat, I can respond to you there. So Mitchell is wondering, I was curious about some of the differences between the full stack program and the computer coding program.
Oh, well, the full stack is a bit shorter, and we talk about how things are held together. The computer programming certificate was never intended to do that. All it inadvertently does tend to tell you how to do that because the courses tie things together. So the instructors add value by providing real life examples. Some of those real life examples in the computer programming certificate are assignments in the full stack developer certificate. So there is some overlap. Some of the courses are potentially could be taken interchangeably, and we allow for that actually. So there are course substitution availability for that. So if you're in one already and you think of maybe doing the other one, you'll get some credit for doing some things in one or the other. If you kind of catch my weird way of talking about it. We don't want to duplicate effort, and we want you to have the best success possible. So we don't actually, while we define what a full stack developer certificate is, you're able to add elective courses that kind of suit it to what your needs might be, and we can help you selecting those as well. So yes, there is some overlap, but this one is more focused on deployment of actual websites as opposed to the learning of how to do coding and things like that. So,
Thank you. No, that was clear. I have a couple of actually multiple questions in the chat about, kind of the background that you might need or you might require to do to be successful in this certificate. So I'm going to read them all. They're all related, I promise. And then you can sort of give a general answer that might answer everyone's questions. So sorry, I'm here. Someone says, my background is in business management and I want to expand my skill and knowledge. Do you think this certificate is suitable for someone without experience in IT? And then another person said, Roop said, would you need to have a background in tech to do the certificate, which is, similar question. And then, I think, do you need to be able to write programming languages before enrolling in the certificate? So I think those are related, but, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I always think these questions are kind of funny, right? So we try and give hints to our audience, right? So there are no entering prerequisites, right? We don't expect you to be a giant programmer, and we wouldn't know how you managed to get huge amounts of experience. But what we do is we provide a kind of entry point where if you have none of those, pieces of experience that you're worried about not having, all of our certificates are kind of designed for that. So it's not just unique to the full stack developer certificate. You can look at all of our certificates, anything to do with computation and computer science. We expect almost nothing. We expect you to have high school, right? And occasionally we ask you to read something. But you're welcome here, and you will not be burned out because you don't understand some concepts. That's why you're taking education, to learn those concepts, right? So we don't expect you to know anything, and we will let you know if we expect you to read something. So don't be scared of the fact that you might not be in a technical job. All jobs are kind of technical. You just don't happen to be familiar with these jobs, right? So what we're saying is, please come and try us out. It's not mysterious, right? We'll pull back the curtain. We'll show you how it works. We'll show you what's behind the machine. And if you like it, then you have a good chance for employment. And that's what we're really expecting. We're expecting you to give us an opportunity to show us what's possible. We want to turn you out so that you'll be the best possible version of you. You'll represent yourself and become successful. And indirectly, you represent us, right? So as I said, we're looking for a long-term relationship. If you don't know anything, it's like, well, babies don't know anything either, but they turn out to be good adults, right? So it may not be the best analogy, but you're kind of going to be our babies, and we're going to birth you out, and you're going to get a job, right? And that's what we're hoping, right? So and that job will be leading into better things and a better life for you and more people like yourselves for us. So I hope that helps.
No, thank you. Thank you. You're almost convincing me, Alex, to do the certificate. And I certainly do not have a tech background, but there's a couple of questions in the chat that are regarding the content of the courses and the certificate. Will somebody learn basic HTML and CSS from the start?
No. So the courses go in a kind of progression. So really, when we're talking about actually learning to program. So some of the things you'll be given examples of, and we de-emphasize. So HTML is something that is presented, and you will be given opportunities to learn a little bit of HTML as well. But we start with Python. Python is an easy to learn programming language that surprisingly has become hugely popular. So there are many of my colleagues who work in the area of programming language design, and they hate Python. Because Python is easy to learn. It's very, very powerful, and it's actually been adopted by the industry despite their academic predictions that it will be a complete failure. So we teach you Python, and from there you can easily learn HTML and any of the other 3-letter acronyms that we're so good at actually producing, which seem to have a lifespan of about 6 months and then go away. Now, the reason I mentioned that is because we are constantly looking to update these courses. So what you see in these courses now, if you came back in a year, they will be considerably different from now. Because the industry evolves. So computer science itself is something that changes we say it's about every 18 months, but it's actually a lot faster than that. And with the evolution of things like machine learning and other forms of AI that are used with chatbots, for example, inevitably we're going to have to change the content of these things. But what we're looking to do is create a kind of an educational story, right? So the story you're learning is, hey, if you hire me, I will work on the front end, I will work in the middle, and I will work in the back. Whatever those things are, I will become familiar with those because I have learned how these are hooked together. And so that's what we're hoping to give you, right? So
Okay, so actually there's a follow-up question in the chat about front end, back end, and to me that doesn't, how many courses will, sorry, is this certificate more focused on front end or back end? I would like to find a job in back end as a back end developer. Do you think this certificate would suit me?
yeah, so when the certificate was envisioned, the idea was an end-to-end person. So someone who would start with so what the thing looked like at the beginning, when the user is looking at it, what would happen in services in the middle to make things function in for the display itself and for capturing data, and in the back end talking to some kind of enterprises database. That's great. But if you're going to be a back end developer, you need to know more than that. So this will be a good introduction to that, but the computer programming certificate probably will be better suitable for someone who's strictly interested in back-end development, because that's where we talk about all the core technologies of the back end. So while we do talk about it in the certificate, it's not in depth enough to make you strictly in a back-end developer. So to be honest, this may not be for you. But it wouldn't hurt, because inevitably, if you're a back-end developer, they yell at you for not knowing anything about the front end. So this is an opportunity to learn that up front.
Thank you so much. And I see that there's a couple of questions in the chat about fees, but someone, Adam from our client services team will type an answer in the chat for you. All this information about fees is also on the certificate page on our website. But there's a question here, Alex, about time and commitment. How many hours a week would you say someone would need to dedicate to completing the certificate? And is it possible to do the certificate while having a full-time job?
Well, yes. So I'll answer the second question first. It definitely is possible to have a full-time job and complete the certificate. In fact, most of the students who are taking it now actually have full-time jobs and are taking it on their off time. Some are having it paid for by their employer. So this is also a possibility if you have an employer that's like that. In terms of how much time is required, I'm not going to lie. I mean, if you don't know anything about computation, you probably will be spending more time than other people. But what you can expect is about double the amount of time. So whatever you spend in the classroom, you'll have to spend an equal or possibly slightly more amount of time outside of the classroom. So this is typical when people are learning how to program, and the time actually does go down because learning to code, if you haven't tried it before, has I wouldn't call it steep, but you have to get to your aha moment. And your aha moment is, I get how this generally works. And once you see how this generally works, the amount of time you're spending per course goes way down. So I know that's not a specific answer, but how about a good rule of thumb being double the amount of class time? Right? So
Perfect.
You'll spend the class time plus an equal amount on your own.
Perfect. So I have two questions in the chat from two of our attendees, and they're both kind of about AI and ChatGPT. The first question is, has ChatGPT and various AI tools impacted this field? And the second question is, there are a lot of discussions going on about AI replacing developer jobs. What are some of the skills that you would learn in here that would not be replaceable?
Well, there's no jobs there's no skills you'll learn that aren't replaceable by something. So you don't have to talk about AI as going to be replacing you. You can talk about people from another country who will do it for less work or less money, and they may replace you too. There's an infinite number of permutations about how you can lose your job. However, you got to get the job in the first place. So this is how you actually get a job. Right now, this form of training and education is in demand at the moment and appears to be kind of bulletproof for a while. In terms of ChatGPT is your friend, actually. So what you learn to do is the lingo of the business. And when you're using ChatGPT or something like it, you suddenly become an expert in that field. Use an analogy which may not be the best analogy, but in 1863 there was a guy called Jack Black, and he was the last rat catcher royal rat catcher. And what he did was he caught rats for Queen Victoria. And he retired and died in poverty because it turns out he wasn't much of a business person. And the reason there was the last rat catcher is because someone invented the rat trap, right? So you can go to a dollar store, buy a rat trap. So a lot of smart people realize that, I don't actually catch rats specifically, but I actually move up the value chain. So if I bought all those rat traps, I become a pest control expert and I can charge more. So that's really, you're asking if this is like, how do I future-proof myself? You start to have to think that way. So whatever the old jobs were, there are going to be new jobs replacing them. And this is the entry level for those new jobs, right? So as I said, things will continue to change and you will not be able to stay in one place in this field because that place will become irrelevant very, very quickly. But at the moment, and probably for the next little while, this is where to be, right? So this certificate is a way into that world. Not the best world, but it is the world.
I'm loving all of your analogies, Alex. But to move on, there's still lots of questions in the chat. So please feel free to enter in yours. We're going to try to get through as many as we can in the time that we have allotted. Matt is wondering if there is a capstone project to help somebody get a job as proof of ability.
Yes. In fact, that's one of our selling features. So each one of these courses provides you an ability to add to a portfolio. So what employers ask for in the front end, they always ask for the same things, actually. So when they want some kind of proof that you've done something, that is the portfolio, and you will be able to show them one because we help you build that in all the courses together. So each course has something like that individually, and there's an opportunity to do that at the end. We'll call it a capstone, but there's a course like that. And so the next thing they're asking for are proof that you are who you say you are, and that's why they have an in-person test normally of something or other. We can't help you with that other than you'll learn what we're teaching you, and you'll probably pass that test. As I said, we have really good experiences with those tests. And the final thing is they'll want letters of reference, which I've already alluded to. We will back up. You will be our product, and we back our product, right? So you will get our support in terms of that. So so it's not just one capstone; it's like a wraparound service.
Thank you. There's a question here. Are there any tutorials or coding practice help outside of class, other than booking a meeting with a virtual mentor?
You'll be given assignments and resource lists in the courses themselves. Some of these are pretty industry standard things that you'll be asked to use. They're not just for the course, they're actually standard references that you need to know about. And so those are resources that are up to you to use. Your instructor is always available, and the technical support, it's not technical support, but the advice on things like homework, that's also there for you. So there are a lot of supports. It's not just somebody you have to make an appointment with. You can talk to the instructor as well, and there are usually breakout groups where you can do self-help with other students doing the same course. So there's a lot of opportunity to get information. Everybody's clueless, right? Like, you don't just enter into a thing monolithically. I mean, some people do, and it doesn't work out very well. We're social animals, right? And that's how we learn. So we expect you to actually continue to be a social animal, and we will provide opportunities for you to interact with other people, right? That's how you will learn. So thank you.
Thanks, Alex. There's a very quite specific question. Is this course sufficient for someone who's self-employed to make their own websites?
Yes. So that's like an easy question. That's sort of the intent. So but see it. Do you want a website that just does basic HTML and displays hello world? You can do that with this course. Do you want something that talks to a backend database, collects customer information, and enables some form of e-commerce? You know what? We talk about that too. So yes, the answer is yes in both cases.
Perfect, thank you. There's a question here from Negar. Is it possible, if possible, could you please explain again what types of jobs we could enter as an entry level after taking the certificate?
Sure. Somebody has some product they want to promote. So they might want to they might want to make a specific website for promoting that product. So that might just be an advertising website. And they realize, oh, they hire people who do web development, but maybe they want to do e-commerce on that site as well, meaning they actually want to sell the product through the site. So they might hire you to actually develop a site that advertises the product and allows people to purchase that product. And then they want to go a little bit further and they say, well, we have this back end system where whatever we're selling, we need to deliver to the customer. So can you do that? Well, our certificate talks about that as well. So anybody who is looking to develop a new website or adding functionality to an old website, those are potential employers, because there's often more work to be had than any kind of internal resource is available for. So if you're just starting out, you will see new products be developed. You could try those, but a great source of jobs for this in this area, and there are dozens being listed, is LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a large variety of employers looking for this type of skill set. So, and they hire entry-level people. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I wanted to also mention we do have a list of kind of career paths on the certificate page on our website as well. There's a question in the chat. Is there a recommended order in terms of for the courses within the certificate that you would recommend that they take?
No. However, it's usually best to go from lowest number one to highest number one. And the reason for that is normally the highest number one has something to do with a capstone, although it may not be called a capstone course. So what that means is we build up a set of skills that allow you to do something fantastical at the end. So the one with the highest number is usually the fantastical course, and you won't be able to do you'll still be able to do it if you don't do it in order, but it's usually best to do the highest number course at the end. So that's an implied order, but there's no mandatory order. Okay. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you, Alex. So I'm going to give everyone another minute to put in your question in the chat. Otherwise, we might be done for this afternoon. I don't see any new questions in the chat. So thank you, Alex, for all of the, of your presentation and all of the great answers today. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to attend the online session. If you're interested in learning more about the certificate, please visit our website at continuing.torontomu.ca. If you have any other questions, please contact us via email at ce@torontomu.ca. This contact information is also in the comment panel, and you'll receive a follow-up email with this information as well as a survey within 24 to 48 hours. And now I see some new questions. So I'm just going to say, what if we answer, do you want to answer two more, Alex, and then we'll wrap it up?
Yeah,
okay, perfect. So what type of system do we need for this course? Howard is wondering in terms of, I guess, computer system.
It's usually better to have a PC-based or Windows-based system, simply because a lot of the back-end systems kind of assume that you have a PC-based system. But we've had students in other, well, I mean, actually, we don't have that much experience. This is a relatively new certificate. But what my experience in previous certificates is the development process that people expect you to go through usually imply a PC-based one, not a Macintosh-based one. But we have had students who've been completely successful using only Macintoshes, like Apple operating system ones. I don't want to taint what you believe. People make these arguments, which one's better? It's not that type of argument. What I've seen is more people tend to use Windows-based systems for this type of development. And that may be just an artifact of time. As I said, things change. So that's the best advice I can give you.
Thank you. There's a question here from Matt. If he asked if you could expand on what you were saying about jobs in LinkedIn. He is self-taught on HTML, CSS, and now tackling JavaScript. How can this certificate help?
Well, I mean, we look at the job market. So there's an actual job market inside the LinkedIn app that that you can see what employers actually want. So they'll list those requirements. What we've done is we use that as one of our models for developing the certificate. So we kind of dovetail into what employers are asking for now. So we're hoping we hit the sweet spot in our certificate so that most of the things that you learn, you can actually rattle off to any potential employer who's looking for exactly those skill sets. So the reason you would take it with us is that we actually address each one of those or most of those job requirements. And actually, if I were to kind of slag our competitor, they don't stay current. So their certificate looks really good, or their certificates tend to look good on the surface, but they don't stay current, right? So as the technology changes, we change along with it. And many of these certificates were developed a long time ago. And as I said, this is a brand new certificate, and we maintain currency. So this is where the industry is at the moment. We're hoping we're guessing properly where it's going. So that's why you would take it with us, a formalized way. Plus, you get a credential. So often nobody believes you when you say you're self-taught. Most of the time, you may have run into this problem because I learned various things by myself, but no one believes you. We'll give you a piece of paper that says you've actually learned it, which is also a big help. Right? So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Alex, for answering those two bonus questions. Now, we're going to say goodbye and thank you again, everyone, again for attending. On behalf of the Chang School and our presenter, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.